Today, I'm going to share an unpopular opinion. Most common knowledge, sleep advice is freaking bullshit. Like, it's just not based on anything. And if you know it, I honestly don't even know how we all came to the time and place where so many professionals and people and parents and just everyone is believing in this stuff. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. There is many, but I chose my top 5 favorites. Um, Bullshit pieces of advice that you for sure have heard, at least one or more, that make absolutely no sense. Are you ready? Let's get into it. I also like to call this bullshit you've been told to sleep to get you to sleep train your baby. Okay, so number one, let me know in the comments if you heard this one. It's that in order for your baby to connect sleep cycles, you have to make sure that how they start the night is how they're going to continue the night, aka teach them to self-soothe, which we'll talk about shortly, and make them sure that they're falling asleep independently. Now think about this logically. Forget the science, forget our understanding of babies' brains, normal sleep, biology, all of that. Let's just throw that out the window for a second and just think logically. Does how you go to sleep at the start of the night determine your ability to stay asleep throughout the night? Like, for example, if you cuddled your partner to sleep, when you wake up in the middle of the night needing to adjust your pillow or blanket, do you have to cuddle your partner again in order to return to sleep? I don't even know if I need to say anything about this, but I do talk about the real reason why your baby is not linking sleep cycles or cries out when they're entering, before they're entering the next cycle. In my free webinar, it's 15 minutes long, Why Self-Soothing is Bullshit. We talk exactly about why your little one is not linking sleep cycles. I'll link it below if you want to learn more. The next one, and this is the biggest myth that drives me crazy as a child and family therapist specialized in infant and child mental health and their sleep. That is their development, social, emotional, and behavior needs, which is that your baby has to, first of all, learn to self-soothe, but also that they can learn to self-soothe by being left alone to cry. The problem is that in the context of sleep training, people refer to self-soothing as the ability to regulate your own emotions. So to calm down from a distressed state down to calm enough to fall asleep. So according to sleep training bullshit, if you leave your baby to cry, they eventually learn to self-soothe, and that is what results in them falling asleep. The problem is that the knowledge and science on baby development and emotional development is like, it's facts and it's not like a debate. It is a fact that babies are unable, just do not have the brain capacity and the nervous system development to calm themselves down from a distressed, upset state down. So how do they actually learn to self-soothe, or can they actually be calmed down, is through co-regulation, which means when a calm adult helps them to regulate and calm. They also learn to self-soothe by being soothed over and over and over again by a calm adult who is connected to them emotionally. Next is that co-sleeping and bed sharing is unsafe for everyone. So basically, it's just dangerous to co-sleep or bed share. So everybody, all babies in all of the world should be sleeping in cribs, and that's the only safe place to sleep. So just like with crib sleep, you can follow the guidelines to make sure that it's safe. So with crib, for example, there should be nothing in the crib. Baby should be on their back. To follow safe sleep guidelines for crib is very important. If you're practicing crib sleep, absolutely you should follow the guidelines for crib sleep. But that doesn't mean that you cannot sleep safely with bed sharing or co-sleeping. Bed sharing and co-sleeping, just like with crib sleep, has guidelines and rules for making sure that it's safe. Baby should still be on their back. Baby should be healthy and full term. Baby should be on a firm mattress, just like with the crib, by the way, next to a breastfeeding parent. And there's additional rules to this. If you're interested, I will link below the Safe Sleep 7 by Lalesh League. But there is also ways to practice co-sleeping and bed sharing safely or unsafely, just like with the crib. Just because you're co-sleeping or bed sharing does not make it inherently unsafe. You can also practice crib sleep unsafely if you put your baby on their tummy, if you put things in the crib, or other, like, I just don't understand this argument that the only way to sleep safely is in the crib. The other problem that I see that breaks my heart with this idea that safe baby sleep can only happen in a crib alone, is that it can cause actually families to sleep dangerously. So, for example, it is a fact that 60 to 75% of breastfeeding parents will end up bed sharing or co-sleeping at some point, even if they don't plan to. Okay, so it's safe to assume that the majority of breastfeeding parents, whether we like it or not, plan for it or not, swear by the crib or not, will end up co-sleeping or bed sharing at some point. Okay, that is a fact. We have many more families breastfeeding nowadays because there's so much more information and a little bit more support about how to do it. Okay, so then what happens is I'm getting, for example, in my practice, clients who are terrified of co-sleeping and bed sharing, but their baby won't sleep in the crib for a variety of reasons. So they end up sleeping with them on recliners or couches. And guess what? Sleeping with a baby on recliners or couches is actually unsafe because you can fall asleep and some harm can come to the baby. They might fall or something that you didn't intend may occur. It is way safer to make sure that we educate families on how to properly set up a safe co-sleeping or bed sharing arrangement. And by the way, you don't have to have your baby in your bed, and sometimes that is not the safest thing to do for your family, for example. You should always pick the one that makes the most sense for your family and that can be practiced safely for your family. In my opinion, it's just way more dangerous to push families to crib sleep when instead we could just educate how to do co-sleeping or bed sharing safely instead. When you do it planfully and intentionally, you can actually practice it safely. When you're planning never to co-sleep and never to bed share, but then you get a baby who just won't sleep in the crib and you're just desperate for sleep, you end up, it's a recipe for an actually dangerous situation. Next, I get this one a lot. Tell me if you've heard this one. But sleep training is evidence-based. There's lots of research that shows that it works, and there's lots of research that shows that it isn't harmful. Not so fast. So there is research supporting sleep training, obviously. There's also research against sleep training, but that is not even the question here. If you really look at the research closely, and if somebody who understands research really well looks at the research closely, they may find that there is about 12 to 15 good high quality studies on sleep training. And before you take that as a cue to just take those studies and assume them as truth, here is the problem for me, why I don't take those studies to support my decisions. So all of these studies are based on parental report. That means parents talking about how they think their babies sleep. It does not include measurements of the baby's actual sleep. So what these studies are actually measuring, if you ask me, is not how the baby sleep. They're measuring the parents' opinion of how the baby sleeps. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Parental report is notoriously known as subjective and unreliable. So it boggles my mind that we are actually taking these 12 to 15 studies and assuming that they apply to everyone, everywhere, and are just true. First of all, it's not that many studies. Second of all, they're not even reliable. Did I say it makes no sense to me how we got here today? Anyway, we also compare these 12 to 15 studies to thousands of studies and textbooks on baby brain development, attachment research, and so much more that tells us that these sleep training ideas just do not make sense within the context of baby brain development and baby development in general and attachment. So I'll leave it here. Okay, and the last one, and this one causes basically all the parents I talk to grief. And it's something that I myself get caught up in often, and I bet that you got caught up in too. And the idea that babies should sleep 12 hours overnight and 2 hour naps and have a 7 p.m. bedtime in order to get good, healthy sleep. First of all, again, like this just makes no sense. I have friends who can sleep 4 hours overnight and function perfectly. Whereas me, for example, if I don't get my 8, 9 hours of sleep, I'm just like dying the next day. There is variation. There is individual differences in babies and in bodies. There's differences in their sleep development. The total amount of sleep and naps, both number and length, varies across different babies. It's just because they're different babies, and the variation is huge, even from the official sources and even from your healthcare providers. If you want to know what the normal range is for your baby's age, make sure to grab the free normal baby sleep guide. I'll link it below. It has a total amount of sleep range, because I don't believe in giving one number for all the babies because it makes no sense. Also number of naps and more for you to use as a guide, and hopefully let out a sigh of relief because you'll see that your baby is within the range. The other piece is that the overnight amount of sleep is actually also dependent on the total nap time and the total sleep needs. For example, you might have a baby who needs 15 or 16 hours of sleep, but this 12-hour sleep overnight and 2 hour nap means they're only getting 14 hours, especially if you're following sleep training advice and limiting the daytime sleep and waking them up from their naps. They might actually end up overtired because they're not getting the amount of sleep that they need. Also, maybe they need more daytime sleep and less overnight sleep. Maybe they need less daytime sleep and more overnight sleep, 13, 14 hours. Every baby is different. So it's really important to do what works for you. It's best to evaluate sleep not based on the length and numbers, but rather on the functioning and the quality of the sleep and the quality of functioning in between sleeps. So just remember, if your baby is not kind of falling on the numbers that you see online, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with your baby. It might mean that that's what they need. Did you find this valuable and helpful? Did you hear any of these pieces of advice? Is there bullshit that you heard that you want to verify whether it's bullshit or not? Comment below and let me know. Also, make sure to watch the Why Self-Soothing is Bullshit webinar. It's free, 15 minutes. We'll link it below, as well as grab the normal baby sleep guide. There's a toddler version available as well in case you have a toddler. I hope to see you next time, and thank you so much for being here. I wish you sweet cuddles and sweet dreams, and see you soon.